It's a matter of insurance presented by the New Hampshire Insurance Department. The New Hampshire Insurance Department is a state agency that regulates the commercial insurance industry in New Hampshire. Have questions or need assistance with your coverage? Call our Consumer Services Division at 1-800-852-3416 or email consumerservices@ins.nh.gov. Learn more about us by visiting nh.gov/insurance. I'm AJ Kierstead, the Consumer Outreach Coordinator at the New Hampshire Insurance Department. In this episode, we will discuss supplemental health insurance products and the problems they sometimes pose with our enforcement counsel, and the importance of price transparency for healthcare with Dr. Jason Aziz. But first, June is National Safety Month, organized by the National Safety Council. More about them at nsc.org. The New Hampshire Insurance Department has been busy promoting many ways safety should be considered at work, home, and on the road on our Facebook and Twitter profiles. You should definitely like